'Cause look-alike twins look alike upside down. Strawberry shortcake with custard and lamb and Ada with sugar woofer, each sold separately.
Sugar woofer, how do you tell the twins apart? I sniff them. They both smell lemony. That's why they're called Lem and Ada. But which is which? Dog defino.
New lamb and Ada with sugar woofer. Strawberry shortcake with custard sold separately.
They're here. Zero gravity cliffhangers, cause you race them upside down, plummeting through the giant loop as you reach for new speeds and use your skill to master the death-defying spiral.
Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new edition of Geek to Me Radio, extended edition, a little bit later in the day. Today we'll be talking to the team from Cloud9 Comics, all about selling comics, buying comics. We'll get into some geek and nerd stuff too. Later on we'll have Joey V's review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. All that and more. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around the greater St. Louis area hearing us on the big 550 KTRS celebrating 25 years of broadcasting, thank you for tuning in. If you are streaming us on the web, thank you for finding us there. And of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your platform that you're listening to this, thank you very much for finding us and subscribing there. And of course, if you're watching this on Instagram or on Twitch or YouTube or Facebook, hello to you, and thanks for tuning in live to the show. My first guests up, we've got the team from Cloud9 Comics. We've got Paul Gubani, Grant Walker, and Grant Wagner, I can't even read my own writing, and Rob Hansen from Cloud9 Comics. They're live in studio. We'll be talking all about buying and selling comics. Guys, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us. Really
thank you.
No problem.
Really happy to be here.
This is going to be fun. So we'll start with the comic book market because that's obviously seeing the influx of all the pop culture stuff. It seems like in the past year and a half, the comic prices have really started to spike.
Absolutely. I think it's more about the pandemic than anything else. People had more free time. People wanted to pursue their own personal passions. And those side hustles that people got going, man, I mean, wonderful. I mean, we capitalized. And a lot of other people have helped us capitalize, and then we've done the same for them.
So when you go in, I mean, do you guys, is there like a limit? Because it's sometimes like if you buy a huge collection, obviously that's going to be going in and sorting everything. But if people come to you and like, hey, I've got one short box, is it just kind of depend on what they have when you guys are looking?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what we think it kind of depends on what we think it's going to be worth. But if someone says that they've got a short box of Silver Age comics, we're going to be happy to look at it. If they've got, 90s Superman titles, probably not. But
yeah, the goal is always to help people too. One of the best things that we can ever do is say, hey, even if we're not interested, let me point you in the right direction. Let me give you some guidance. And we're not always the people who can buy their collection. Sometimes they want to do it themselves. And just putting that good faith out in the world and helping people, it seems to come back to us. Everybody knows somebody when you collect comic books. I mean, how many friends do you have that collect comic books, James?
Yeah.
And it's super advantageous to just do the right thing, help them out. And, even if they aren't interested in our offer, like say no thanks and keep going.
With everything, like people might be listening to this right now and they're like, oh, I've got comics. Is there something that's like, obviously Batman's always popular, key issues, but is there anything like people should be on the lookout for if they want to dig through their collection and pull out some stuff? What is there that they could quickly go through and say, oh, this might be worth giving Cloud9 a call?
No, you know what? I think one of the best things about the comic book industry right now is that people are chasing after key issues, first appearances. Back in the day, people couldn't afford an Amazing Fantasy 15. They still probably can't. By the way, listeners, that's a first appearance of Spider-Man, in case you're curious. But after that, they want to move on to something else. What's the next best thing? Well, back in the day, Amazing Spider-Man #1 was the next best thing. Let's say you can't afford first appearance of Elektra, Grant. What would you buy if you couldn't afford the first appearance of Elektra?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd probably go with... It depends on what the time period that I'm looking at is. Because if I can't afford any of the high-value Silver Age books, I'd be looking at the kind of mid-tier range Bronze Age books. Now, Bronze Age is also starting to jump up crazy high right now because we're talking about the first appearance of Wolverine, the first appearance of, well, the new X-Men. We're talking about characters like that. But at the same time, there are first appearances in that time period that you will be able to find. So that's what I would be looking for.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are doing that jump from they're trying to buy that key, they can't afford it, so they move on to the first issue with that character in it. Like, so back to the Elektra example, I think people are picking up Elektra Assassin right now. That first issue and that cover by Bill Sienkiewicz, it's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So people are like immediately trying to find the next best thing. So my advice to people is the #1 issue of that character in their own title for the first time ever. Deathlock #1, Elektra Assassin #1, Moon Knight #1. I mean, a lot of people go to the Marvel Spotlight 28 for him.
Right.
I think that they should pass it up and go to the Bill Sienkiewicz stuff. Again, sorry, I name dropped him twice now.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy.
I mean,
He's
I've got
super
that
kind.
Electra Assassin poster, that big black poster with her on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a gorgeous poster.
Yeah,
Some
one of my
the stuff-
favorite artists for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you mentioned the Bronze Age. I think it's interesting, too, because there's a lot of first appearances that we're starting to see. Obviously, Iron Fist, Marvel Premiere 15 is Bronze Age. Luke Cage is technically beginning of Bronze Age. That's still
Absolutely.
an affordable book, Power Man #1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Bronze Age stuff. If people are listening, that might be, if they want to start delving into for speculating purposes, that might be a good place to jump in as the Bronze Age.
Absolutely. I think there was a lot of angst in the 1960s, late 60s after everything that happened in the Vietnam War, and you feel that angst in Marvel comic books. You get dark, dark characters. I mean, Rob just picked up a first appearance of Ghost Rider over
Yeah,
the
the
weekend.
Marvel
Nice. Marvel
Spotlight
Spotlight,
5.
Yeah.
I've been wanting a nice big key, and I feel like that's a good one for me to pick up. You know, I feel like they might bring him into the future of Marvel, hopefully. So
Hopefully,
yeah.
especially with the Midnight Suns, if they're doing anything
Yeah.
with that. Now they've already got Blade, so that'll be exciting to see where they go forward from there.
Absolutely. And then you got Punisher after that.
Yeah.
And then you got Moon Knight after that. I mean, you
Right.
got some pretty fantastic
Daredevil
Bronze Age angst. Daredevil,
coming
yeah.
out, yeah.
He took a huge rise
I
back then
know.
from Frank Miller and, again, Bill Sienkiewicz days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm surprised the Daredevil #1 never, even with the success of the Marvel Netflix series, that #1 still seems very affordable for a Silver Age key.
And get it while you can.
yeah.
Yeah.
I picked one up, and then what'd you do, Grant?
I picked
Yeah.
one up as well.
I wish I picked one up.
So if you're listening right now, go out and buy your Daredevil #1s where you can find them. That's probably a good idea. But it seems like the speculators, because a lot of people are watching Netflix, they're not collectors like all of us. We collect comic books. We love comic books. A lot of people are dipping in and saying, I'm going to get this because I know it's a hot book. And I'm going to go, I feel like that is, I don't want to say ruining the market, but I think that's a lot of people are doing that. And that's kind of, it seems one of the reasons the prices are going up, because a lot of people are seeing the Netflix properties and the Marvel stuff and the DC stuff and going out and buying comic books. And if someone's paying, like they just did with that Super Mario Brothers, the video game, now people are selling video games for $1,000 to $5,000 a pop, and it's like, it's not worth that, but that's the last price paid. So now that set a precedent.
Yeah, all of a sudden you have new benchmarks for some things that seem silly to us.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to tell people, if you're going to invest in something, read the darn thing. I mean, you got to know why you like it, and don't let other people just tell you that they like it. I mean, how much time do we spend reading comic books, Grant?
Oh yeah. Too much time?
Too much time. Yeah, I remember that quote from the opening scenes in Unbreakable, the Bruce Willis movie, M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, it said that the average comic book collector has 3,300 comic books in their collection. I think that everybody at this table is probably going to laugh at that number because we all have so many more comic books than that. But we read them. You can't just invest. You have to invest yourself, your time.
Right, because then it's just, you might as well be buying stocks if you're not going to enjoy what,
Yeah, but
sure
even
some people
even
enjoy
those
stocks, but-
professional stock investors, man, they read the annual statements.
Right.
And that equation equates to comic books. Read the darn comic book.
Yeah.
Speaking of stock, I'd like to point out that Daredevil #1 has tripled in price since the beginning of this year. I think. So,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Maybe I
Oh, you were right.
Should have bought it earlier.
Well, during the Netflix days, yeah, but like everybody's speculating because of that Spider-Man preview where they can see the hairy arm on the table, and everybody's like, "That's Cox. That's
Charlie
right
Cox
there."
is a very hairy individual. That could be his arms.
Yeah. Well, people were like
You see the
identifying
chin a little
moles.
bit?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I love talking about the Marvel stuff. Everyone's been speculating every step of the way. Oh, Mephisto, like Wanda and
Oh, yeah.
Scarlet
waiting
Witch
for
and everything,
it.
and that was like, nope, never happened. And now people are saying, oh, Doctor Strange, his whole house was icy. Mephisto, and nope, probably not. And you come to find out Jack Schaefer, who was the showrunner for WandaVision, said, oh, I didn't even know who Mephisto was when I took on the show. I'm like, how do you hire somebody? I mean, that's an integral part to her children and everything else. But so I'm just kind of laughing. Everyone says Mephisto. I'm like, I'm just going to keep buying first appearances of Mephisto until they finally do throw him in, and then.
I'm
Also, the
afraid
guys who
it's gonna
bought
be
all
a
those
joke.
copies of Mephisto probably hope so too.
Yeah. So I know do you have like what's the size of your collection, Rob? Because I know these guys we've talked about, but I don't think I've ever discussed with you.
I don't know. Maybe like he said, it's definitely over 3,000 for sure. Maybe like closer to 10, maybe. You know, I haven't really counted. So
I always
That's
think of
awesome.
you as more into the toys too, because you and I always see each other at Toy Man.
Yeah.
And you're always buying like
know.
Plastic Man this.
walking out
and-
with something.
Right.
Yeah.
So I always think. So is your toy collection dwarf your comic collection?
Yeah, I have a few storages here and there
Okay. All
that are full of certain toys that I've collected throughout the time. Yeah, big Toxic Avenger stuff, you know,
Oh, yeah.
Turtles as well, like we've discussed before, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But yeah, my collection, I'd say my toys maybe out trumps the comics, but that's also been on the rise since I started working at Cloud9 Comics and more. So
Word.
yeah.
And you guys buy toys too. It's
Oh,
not just comics.
gosh,
It's
yes.
Cloud9 Comics, but you guys buy toys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the joke that we always say, Cloud9 Comics and More is our title. We really like to dip into that and more side when we're going on deals because it's always fun to see what people were collecting.
Yeah.
It's not just about, what they're reading and stuff. What gave them that sense of fun when they were a kid or an adult? Because, we're all adults here. And
Well,
we all
speak for
still
yourself.
have-
I know
my driver's license says I am.
Right.
But
Yeah. Chronologically, we're all adults. That's correct.
Yeah, but your ID card from GI Joe, does it still say the same thing on it too?
Well,
Which
I know we joked about video games, but
Yeah.
that's definitely something that, we're going after as well because it's on the rise, So
plus I still like to play them
Yes.
like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would
testing
love
them is fun.
Yeah, some of those old Nintendo games, it's like I'm not going to pay $500 for a Nintendo cartridge, but
Yeah.
if I was to get a Nintendo Entertainment System and a bunch of games for $500, that's more palatable. But it seems like people are throwing stuff on eBay, especially because eBay is one of the worst indicators to me of the market because people will put stuff on there and they'll list it at a high price and it doesn't sell, but people say, "Oh, look, it's on there." I'm like, "Well, that's not what it's sold for." So I think that kind of muddies the waters too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. That it is kind of a misnomer because eBay can be the worst, but it also can be the best sense because you can sort by sold.
Right.
So you can see what the actual market value of something is, or at least the average of it is, over the course of a day, a week, a year.
Yeah, and the right comic book, or just like the right video game, just like the right toy, if you can find the right hot point for it and you get your measurable data, pay attention, take a note, and then kind of move on from there because you might have dry spells. You might have feasts and famines. That's kind of how the comic book industry in general works anyways. So when you're watching that Super Mario Brothers 3 sell for $10,000 just because it's sealed, you got to wonder to yourself, well, what's my unsealed but complete copy with the instruction manual and everything else worth?
Styrofoam inserts, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
kind of the watching Giant Size X-Men. I
No.
mentioned it before, but you'll see these outrageous sales and stuff on it, but you won't find any listed because people who list it will get that price.
Yeah.
Because that's not a very accurate, price point for it if it just keeps selling the second it gets listed. So that one's kind of in flux. You never know what the high point is going to be for it.
Yeah, Rob, do you see toys like that very often that like have those feast and famine moments?
Yes, but I think it's like anything, once buzz starts getting talked about something, it could be a $5 toy at the time, and then all of a sudden it's a $150 toy,
I feel like
Just because-
Superpowers has been very up and down because I know
Yeah.
I was watching Cyborg, Mint on Cars. It's the hardest to find, most, valuable one. And for a while, I'd say, what are we in, November? Earlier this year, like March, April, it was going for about like $1,000, $1,200. And I feel like it's dipped back down to the $900 range the last couple of ones I've seen it sell for. So
Oh, we might be part of the problem. They're just talking about it probably ignites that passion for other people, and then they do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and like that feast and famine moment, you got 5 listed, all 5 sold, and then somebody puts one up that they just bought at the beginning of that craze, and then they want to flip it for double. I mean,
I'll be super happy if 10 Daredevil #1s are getting shipped to St. Louis right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the toys and the comics and the video games, those I think are the 3 like the triumvirate. But do you guys like what other stuff do you guys look for as far as what you said and more? So it can't be just those 3 things. There's probably other items that you guys.
Yeah, I played Magic the Gathering as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And
I started playing Magic because we started buying Magic cards, so I knew how to talk to people about it.
yeah, but Grant, you started out your love of cards and everything nerdy in general from what?
I mean, that's actually kind of why I'm here. I think I started collecting Pokemon cards when it first came out.
Yeah.
So.
Say it, Pokemon!
Yeah, which I still have all of my cards, and I'm going to get stuff certified because all that stuff that I had when I was a kid are going off like crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the prices, because didn't one just go for like 10,000 or something like that?
Okay, so
a Charizard or something like
so
that?
$300,000.
So something fun about that, there's like 3 different versions of that card that came out of the same pack, but a first edition Shadowless Charizard, it's the hardest version of that card to get, just sold for a record number. Wow. And they're projecting it, thank you to one of the Pauls, to go for $500,000.
Man.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That doesn't make you feel like you never should have opened up a pack of anything in your entire life.
Just keep sticking the packs in my pocket after
I wish I never would have played my Mario 64 game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was the one that sold for like $1 million.
Ooh.
I'm still happy that I have those fond memories. I am glad I played that game.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, back to the sealed thing. I heard this from a gentleman because I don't fully understand the video game market. Now I can look up data. We can do the research, and together as a team, we can come up with a number.
Yeah,
like we do that a lot. We've done this so long for so many years. It's easy for us. But I never understood why a sealed video game would be worth so much. And then somebody pointed out to me the most amazing thing, and it's just one of those light bulb moments. Did you play your video games, guys?
Yes. Right.
Doesn't that involve unsealing it?
So it's a very important part of the
right of the gaming process.
Yeah.
So how do you end up with sealed product? And one of the gentlemen that I had talked to about this, he had a friend that bought 2.
Yeah, buy 2
everything.
copies.
He was afraid it was going to break. Darn things are made in Japan. They don't break.
Yeah.
I've started to do that with figures. More recent.
You go.
Yeah.
Got to play with them a little bit too.
And then you maybe set the other one out and display
like current figure. Like, are you buying current figures off the shelves, like at Target and Walmart and stuff like that?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I haven't bought a current figure because I've been very unimpressed with.
I agree. I'm with you on that.
The quality, unless I get it from like a secondary market like HasLabs or direct from Entertainment Earth or something.
It's got to be something that I'm really into. Like I was collecting NECA, grabbing almost everything I could find that I was sort of into, but I was like, I got to slow down. The molds and stuff, they're not the greatest, like you're saying.
Yeah. Because I know some of the recent Star Wars figures that are out on the shelves, like the Princess Leia looks like a midget. And I'm like, that's a horrible rendition of, Carrie Fisher's rolling in her grave with this figure that's out on the shelves. It's horrible.
Are you talking about the standard size or the black label stuff?
Not the tall, the black label. It's the vintage, I guess the vintage collection.
Yeah,
and they've got one. It's a Return of the Jedi version. I can't remember if it's General or if it's her in her Ewok. But I'm like, that's just. She looks the sculpt is horrible.
Is it as bad as Big Head Han Solo from the original Caroline?
No, it's not. Well, I would say it is as bad because it would look like his daughter if they were to marry those two up.
Oh wow!
Because it's very disproportionate. But yeah, the Big Head Han Solo is another one kind of.
Yeah, you can kind of forgive that. It was 1977.
Right. The toys were just starting.
The new toys for me, I'm big on the art, and so the old style packages were big on the art on them and stuff, and so that drew me a lot. And this new stuff, they don't really have much on the packaging, so it's, I don't know, give and take. So I did collect a lot of the Toonie Terrors line, if you've seen any of those.
I do recall those, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a few of those, like Beetlejuice and Elvira. So
yeah, some of the Transformers current ones I've seen out are okay because they've got the 86, like the movie version have come out with like a large Grimlock and Jazz and Blur, and those are really cool.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones, like the new G.I. Joe, like the Cobra Fang and the Cobra Hiss, they just the package even feels weird. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
But those Transformers, you're talking about the Masterpieces set? You're talking about War of Cybertron?
They've actually they've got ones that came out in the stores, and it's labeled as Transformers 86, and they have like from the movie, so it's Grimlock, Blur, Cup. I think they've just released Slag, And Grimlock comes with a little wheelie that accompanies him, and Slag has a miniature Spike in the exosuit that he wore in the movie.
Yeah,
so
that thing
it's
is
really
so
kind of
awesome.
cool packaging for those. But
Yeah.
and some of the war for Cybertron ones, you and I talked about RC.
Yeah, I
for
love
that
the
one.
RC from that set. I mean, it's hard to fit all of that into that shell. I mean, when they did the animation for her, it's clear that like she doesn't transform properly, but everybody else does. But that's the best version of RC I've seen that you don't have to spend a boatload on just to get something that's near authentic. But
Yeah.
I like the packaging for the 80s movies ones because you can take the packaging off and do kind of like a backdrop
Little
with
diorama. That's
I
right.
love
yeah,
that.
That's so cool.
It's like, hey, I know that you don't want to open up your toy because it's going to be worth something, but open up your toy and play with it because it's cool.
Or if you can find it on clearance, then you can get 2.
Oh, yeah,
I was gonna say, or
absolutely.
2 of them. And then
That's probably the best thing to do. Again, if you're just now tuning in, we're talking with the gang from Cloud9 Comics. We're talking about collectibles and comics and everything and the market for them. We're also going to get into some pop culture stuff. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come right back after this, chatting more comics, cards, more. Stand by.
Zero gravity cliffhangers. Now with Night Glow. New from Tyco. Go.
It's time to start the Strawberry Land Bake-Off in honor of my very new Sweet Sense kitchen. Okay, you can start cooking. Judge, I hope you like my apple pie. I'd better turn up the strawberries. Everything smells very delicious, like apples and strawberries. But the gingerbread wins. Who made the gingerbread? I did. Oh.
The Strawberry Shortcake Sweet Sense Kitchen comes with everything you see here. New from...
You are controlling the fastest train in the world. The most revolutionary machine on tracks. The incredible Super Turbo Train. So fast it travels in scale beyond the speed of sound. So powerful it can do what no other train can do. Race up a wall defying gravity. Now the ultimate. You streak upside down through the giant loop. You turn out the lights and you're in Night Glow. Streamlining the darkness. Take control of the fastest train in the world. Super Turbo Train. New from Tyco.
Here's the real thing in racing thrills. Here are Tonka's new Power Punchers, pocket-sized cars. You can rev them up and pow, pow, Power Punchers. You can race them and run them, jump them and bump them.
A Tonka toy built Tonka Town for the fun.
A pocket full of fun. Power Punchers, each sold separately. New from Tonka.
Why don't you drive a Tonka?
Fun and adventure, that's what you get when you drive Tonka trucks like Mudrunner, Roving Wrecker, and Jeep CJ, each sold separately. Trucks so rugged, so powerful, you know they're Tonkas.
Someday you'll be driving one of these. Till then, keep driving those Tonkas.
Why don't you drive a Tonka?
Mudrunner, Jeep CJ, and Roving Wrecker come with everything shown here, each sold separately from Tonka.
Come with me to a place
You'll be glad that you did. And so much more. Oh, what a store where Toys R Us kids. It's a magical land. So where else would you go when everything's a Toys R Us and prices are low?
If it's new and hot,
It's a toy they've got.
And the prices are hard to beat.
You can search the whole world for Toys R Us kids now. It's the one and only place to go.
Hey, hi, listeners. This is Greg Berger. Meet Grimlock, Dinobot leader from Transformers. And guess what? You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back. Geek to Me Radio, live on the Big 550 KTRS. I want to tell you about our official movie sponsor, Marcus Theaters. MarcusTheaters.com is the website. You can go there to find the location of the Marcus Theaters or Movie Tavern closest to you. You can actually see what movies are playing. You can do the movie reviews right there. You can also enroll while you're on the website in their Magical Movie Rewards program. So you get points for seeing movies and buying concessions that you can then use to go see more movies and buy more concessions. It's a great deal. And, of course, they've got specials going on now for the holiday season. If you want to get a gift card, they've got a percentage back that you'll get for yourself. If you buy gift cards, I believe it's over $50. And with the supply chain shortage and everything going on, it might be a good idea to get some gift cards this year, especially for stocking stuffers. And who doesn't like going to the movies? So you can get those from your local location, or you can order them on the website. Another great thing to do is check out their individual movie theater rentals. So you and a group can go pick the movie you want to see. I think it starts at $99 depending on your area, and you and 20 of your friends can sit back and have a movie theater all to yourself. You can add concessions and things like that. It's a great thing for holiday parties you've got coming up. Maybe you've got a birthday or an anniversary, something you want to do that's fun. And there's a lot of great movies out now. We were just talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Max on Movies was just talking about that one right before we came on. You can still see No Time to Die, Last Night in Soho, The French Dispatch. There's a ton of great movies out right now. And of course, Spider-Man is going to be out pretty soon here, December 17th, I believe. We were talking about Ghostbusters. Joey, I know we heard Max on Movies review. You saw Ghostbusters, and you enjoyed it?
I did enjoy it. Who has seen it? Who here has seen Ghostbusters? I want to include everybody.
I think just me.
Just you? Oh, we must tread lightly. Of course, everyone, the millions of people listening, we better not do any spoilers. I mean, I was thinking back. I was really into Ghostbusters when I was a kid, but I haven't watched the first one in a long time, actually. And thinking back, I may have only been into the toys. I don't know if I cared that much about the plot of the movie. Yeah,
Did you have the proton pack?
I had a proton pack. I had a trap. I had tons of the real Ghostbusters action figures, but I didn't pay much attention to why the ghosts were there. Like, you start talking to me about Zool and Gozer and Keymasters. I don't think I cared that much as a kid. And it feels like in this movie, they stop it to just explain everything about Zool and Gozer and how it relates to the first movie. And that kind of made my mind wander a little bit. But when you have like a little girl hanging out the side of an Ecto-1 and a gunner seat blowing up half the town, like that's when my heart gets racing, and I love those scenes.
The toy Ecto-1 did have a gunner seat on the roof.
I remember that, yeah, the real Ghostbusters. I had that toy, and I got to find it. You guys ever find like a piece to a toy, and you're like, I know exactly where that goes.
Yes.
And where the heck is the rest of this toy? I was digging through some toys at my mom's storage unit. I found my Technodrome, and there was like a little black chair. It's like, that's a gunner seat chair, right? Where the heck is my Ecto-1? So it got me thinking. And this was just like a couple months ago. But yeah, back to Ghostbusters. I mean, there's scenes with the kids. This little girl, McKenna Grace, she's amazing. It reminds me of any child-centric Spielberg-type movies. Like you think back to E.T. or Jurassic Park, or even, like Back to the Future. Spielberg was a producer on that. Thinking back when the kids are discovering stuff, the way they're discovering how this all links to their family members and stuff. I love that stuff. But just, the product placement. There's a big scene in a Walmart where it's like the most perfectly framed shot of a Walmart, and everything on the shelves is just in perfect order. Like, I've never seen a Walmart without anything on the floor before.
Yeah, what about all the supply shortages we got going on right now?
Exactly.
You don't see that in that.
And then they throw in their own little Minions thing with the Stay Puft marshmallows that just kind of feels forced. So there's part of that. But you give me the action and the heartfelt story with the mom and little girl, like, that's what I'm there for, and that's what I love. So
a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, what would you give it?
I can't do the math. I had 1 to 10 ready. Now
Okay, 1 to 10. Tell me 1 to 10, that's
now
fine.
I got to cut it in half. 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Okay, that's not bad. And again, if you want to see a great movie in the best possible setting, Marcus Theaters is the place for you to go. MarcusTheaters.com for the best movie-going experience in the galaxy. Very proud to have them as the official movie sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. So we're talking with the group from Cloud9 Comics and more. I'm going to get the and more in there. We've got Paul Gubani, Grant Wagner, and Rob Hansen in studio with us. And we were talking before we went to break just about buying toys and collectibles and everything like that. And we were talking off air with people, my age who are in their 20s. And are you seeing, like, what age are you seeing, like, older people selling off their Silver Age collection? Is it people a little bit younger than me selling off their 90s stuff? Or is it a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything. And I think it's just catered to whatever the individual at that time has. We see the moments where collections eclipse their management abilities. And then we see the collections where they're like, you know what? I had my fun with this. I had my little piece of nostalgia. My kids aren't interested. I'm just ready to let it go. And then there's the inherited collections where somebody says, this is too much. I don't know what to do with it. I need an expert. So that's what we see the most of, probably those 3 things.
Yeah, every once in a while we'll have someone call us and say, hey, I just got all of these comics from my late grandfather or something, and it's taking up 3 rooms of my house. Please help. And then we'll,
take them.
That's right. We'll add an extension onto your house, so we'll be right over. That's how you help them. Just let them have more room.
Yes.
And putting them at ease when they have that size of a collection, too, because most of what we can do is we can just look through a comic book long box in like a couple of minutes, and then we've sold it, so we know what we're looking at. With Gosh, I mean, we did 5,000 items in the last 90 days.
Wow.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, and like 90% of what we do is comic books, but the end more is always there.
So has there been an uptick in since COVID of people like, like obviously some people just, hey, you're furloughed now, you don't have a job, and I would think that would necessitate people to sell off some stock, sell off comic book collections, or was it pretty steady throughout before COVID, going into COVID, and now?
So this was actually kind of interesting. So right when the pandemic hit, we had no phone calls for about 4 months because everybody was sorting their collections or buying stuff, which was pretty wonderful. But after they got all their stuff sorted, and they're like, I really want to have a basement again, they'd call us. So about 4 or 5 months after the initial lockdown, we started getting phone calls, and it just never stopped.
Yeah, it was wonderful during that time period. And I think a lot of people took their time. I think that one of the things that COVID taught all of us is patience is best. And a lot of people took that opportunity to find a new job, or they might have actually turned their collections into an opportunity to make money. And I mean, people ask us what we do for a living, and the hardest thing to do is define it. So I've come up with a nutshell of we sell people's childhoods back to them, and sometimes people want that nostalgia piece and they love just going through it and finding that new appreciation. I think COVID did that for a lot of people, where they came back to their childhoods and they said, what do I have that I want to sell? And they fell in love with it all over again. I get so many people who sell us their collections and they're still buying comic books at the comic book store afterwards. And that's wonderful. I don't like hearing that people just shut down the whole thing, but downsizing, that's an option.
Yeah. And with what you guys do, we should mention the business too, because you guys don't have a storefront, but you guys do everything on eBay, correct?
Absolutely.
So if people want to find you guys online or anything, where's the best place? Just, do you guys have a website? Just go to eBay and search for Cloud9 Comics. What's the best way to?
You can do either one of those things. Our website is cloud9comicsandmore.com. It's largely a referral site, letting customers know what we buy. When we sell stuff, we want to be part of the world's largest marketplace. I mean, you can talk about how difficult eBay is. Everybody's got their horror stories of eBay, but just like everything, if you manage it well and you take your time and you're patient, it can be a wonderful thing. eBay is a truly wonderful thing for us, and we work really hard to maintain our relationship with them. And I'd say eBay is our number one source of everything, not in terms of incoming product, but outgoing. We sell pretty much 90% of our product on eBay.
Absolutely. You can also contact us through Facebook. You'll get me directly if you find us on Facebook. We don't usually post too much, but it's a great way to actually contact the store.
Yeah, and honestly, if you go to a local comic book store and you ask them, hey, we're looking to buy comic books, you have a 1 in 5 chance in the St. Louis area of ending up with my number anyways, because we work closely with the fantasy shop. The fantasy shop, customer comes in there and says, hey, we're looking to sell our collection. They're going to refer us 100% of the time. We have a great relationship with them, and we've been doing that for about 10 years now.
Very cool. And Rob, what do you do exactly? I'm kidding. Just so everyone's listening knows, Rob and I go way back, so I'm giving Rob trouble just because he and I have that kind of relationship. So, but yes. Did you mostly do the toys for them? Is that kind of your area of expertise, or is it?
I came in with the comic books, doing that first, and then he found out that I was really into the toys and video games, and so now I'm basically the toys and video games manager operation.
Oh, dude, expert.
Expert, I guess. So
tell him that Pokemon story, man.
The Pokemon story?
Yeah, that we made an error and that you found it. I love hearing that kind of stuff. We made a huge mistake. We bought some video games.
Oh, the video game Pokemon games. Yes, I was like, Pokemon cards. That's Grant's wheelhouse.
No, the video games are your wheelhouse. No, tell me about that.
Yeah, so we ended up purchasing some. What were they? Game Boy Advanced Pokemon games, and we ended up buying them and found out that they were knockoffs.
Oh, no.
So, you win some and you lose some, but it was a good lesson learned because, now we all know what to look out for and whatnot, because a lot of people are out there trying to make money, and those things are pretty easy to, duplicate.
So someone just 3D print an outside
for the most part, and then buys a sticker and, but there are little things to look out for,
And the thing is, I'm guessing it wasn't even our customer, because I'm sure the game played just the same as it did before.
So they might not have known that.
Yeah, they might not even know.
He did not know. He called me back and he wanted to sell us more product that he had found, and I asked him if he knew, and he's like, "No, man, I bought those things on eBay."
That's the first. Yeah, some people just try to sell, and they don't really describe really what it is, and some people think it's the authentic game, and then they buy it, and then they, some people just don't understand if it is or not, and they just take it and play it, and they don't care if it is real or not, And
this was something that was side by side, looks exactly the same until you pop it open, and one of the chips is different.
Or it's, the Nintendo on the back, where it's engraved.
Yeah.
The real ones have like a squared dot over the eye, and the fake ones have like a circle dot over the eye. But
you think the people counterfeiting want to go through the trouble to make it look exactly the same?
I know.
No, this is my trademark of counterfeit.
It's close.
Oh man, it was awesome. He knew it right away, though. I mean, Rob, good on you. Just like a little bit of kudos to you for that. But like, your knowledge with video games is impressive, and we've been really happy to have that. One of the things that I try to do as hard as I can managing this company is to find people who have knowledge sets that I don't have. Grant, I mean, I think that you know more about Dungeons and Dragons than I could possibly learn.
Me as well.
I wish I could teach you, but at the same time, there's just years of games there.
No, and I think that we just try to make sure that we find people who have skill sets that we don't have, and we all try to come together to make that whole thing work. I mean, the and more is definitely everybody, but the Cloud9 Comics part, I mean, like the knowledge of comic books that these guys have taught me, and then in the vice versa of them teaching each other, it's not just about them like coming back to me, but like I was saying earlier, Grant here knows way more about comic books than I do now, because I've forgotten most of it, and he actually remembers the stuff that I taught him, which is wonderful.
Is it just a retaining knowledge of it, or are you actually like going back and researching stuff and things like that and kind of listening in on updates and whatever?
So this is kind of one of those things that is always growing. So first appearances of characters that meant absolutely nothing. Let's take Polka Dot Man, for instance.
Yeah.
Detective Comic Books 300 for the listeners.
Yeah, so that's really not an important book until Suicide Squad came out, and now everybody wants it. It's amazing. So doing the research, finding those characters that mean something. And I was actually going to bring this up earlier. You were talking about if you can't get a first appearance of things, go after the villains.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a great chance that those books are going to skyrocket in price, because the heroes are always going to be there. They're just going to have a rotating door of villains, so try and get those villains before they come out.
And again, I'm waiting for my Condiment King first appearance to skyrocket as soon as he shows up. Matt Reeves will put him in the next one. I know it. It's going to happen.
Put that right next to Batmite.
I like Batmite. I enjoy it quite a bit.
I don't think he fits in the Dark Knight universe.
No, probably
Ask Christopher
not,
Nolan
no.
if he would have used him.
It'd be very sad. But he did pop up in the Batman animated series, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yes.
And you were talking about Dungeons and Dragons, so like vintage board games, is that something that you guys?
Yes.
Vintage to brand new. We're looking for it, but yeah, one of my favorite things to go out on a deal for is AD&D books, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That's 2nd edition, and there are so many books. It's great.
Yeah, and modules and the little nuances with the figures, the TSRs.
Yeah. I was actually really surprised by just how many miniatures were actually there.
Yeah, it comes in handy, too, to have all those miniatures. People like to hold that physical, tangible object when they're playing the games. It's so integral to, like, the imagination as you're playing these games, especially for the Dungeon Master.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick, since we're coming up on the top of the hour and we had this extended edition, we're going to take a quick legal ID.
The talk of St. Louis. KTRS AM, FM 1061, K291CW St. Louis.
And there you are. So you know who you're listening to. Thanks, Joey, for pointing out, because I wasn't even paying attention, because normally we don't have this extended time period to play with. So, yeah, thanks for listening. If you're on the big 550 KTRS wattage and you're hearing us out there, again, for those of you who might be just tuning in, this is an extended version of Geek to Me Radio. We've got the crew from Cloud9 Comics. If you guys have a question or something like that, if you want to call in, the KTRS phone lines are 931-5877. That's in the 314 area code. Or you can text us at 84126. It's right there as well. I was like, I know it's there somewhere, but same paper. Thank you. This is why I need Joey, because he keeps me on track and halfway sane. If you have a question about something you own that you might want to see if they can help you out on or anything like that, because obviously they're buying a lot of stuff all the time.
Yeah, but right back to that old thing. If you just want some advice, I mean, let's put some goodwill out there. If people just got a curiosity, what's my book worth? We can give them a benchmark kind of thing. Got to see the book. Got to hold it to give them the official price. Big rule about comic books. So many people ask us, like, hey, what's my book worth? I'm like, I got to hold it, but I'll give you a ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. And I know we talked about, before we started the show, how the pop culture is feeding into this with all the shows out there. We've got WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, all this stuff, and we've gotten all these great new characters that are popping up, which has driven up the price of a lot of comic books. But it's an amazing time to be a fan because of all the shows that are out there, all the movies that are out there. So what have you guys been most excited about as far as the movies or the television, be it DC, Marvel, or independent? We'll start with Grant.
So I think that it's more encompassing than that. I think it's just a great time to be a geek, because right now Netflix has Cowboy Bebop, which turned out to be amazing. They've got League of Legends Arcane, which is phenomenal, and I highly suggest everyone go out and watch that. So it's not just, Marvel movies or Marvel TV shows or DC TV shows. It's everything for geek culture.
Yeah.
I love that. Right now, I just cannot wait for Spider-Man. I am hooked. The hype for this movie is bigger than what the movie's going to be, and that kind of worries me. But at the same time, oh my god.
Yeah, they're putting a lot into it. I'm trying to keep my expectations low, just because I've had that problem with a couple movies lately where I've gone in like, this is gonna be great, and it's not. So, but what about you, Grant?
So last time that we had a Spider-Man movie that flopped was Spider-Man 3. I think we need to talk about that for just a second. They crammed so much into that movie that it took away from it. I'm always fearful of that, and we see so many of these villains. But I think that what we're going to hopefully see in the Spider-Man movie is that it's pre-established. Like, we didn't get a Spider-Man origin story out of the Tom Holland version.
Right.
It didn't need to happen.
No.
I don't think we need it with all these villains either. If they can just get straight to what the real plot is, I mean, I think that it's going to be a lot better. And so far, the previews seem to show that. But what you were saying about comic book values, I actually want to go on record saying this in some way that's published, so this is going to be great. But everybody focused on Deadpool's first appearance when the Deadpool movie came out. I didn't do that. I said, if there's Deadpool, there will be Cable. And I bought as many Cable first appearances as I could. I got lucky with that one. But I haven't called one like this in a while, but I'm going to say that Miles Morales is probably going to make an appearance in this new Spider-Man movie. The reason why I think that, too, looking at this movie, is that there's just so much opportunity for it. And honestly, if you're going to put 3 Spider-Man in a movie, I mean, why not put a 4th?
I mean, we already did get kind of a confirmation that he's in that universe.
Yeah.
We've got Prowler saying that his
nephew,
yeah,
something to that effect, yeah.
Was going to be, or was living on those streets. He doesn't want all the high-tech gadgets
Yeah,
and
in
stuff
the
running
area.
around. Right.
Yeah.
So we already know he's there in New York. So
Yeah, and hopefully we see that. You know, and I remember that scene out of the 2002 Spider-Man movie, too. I mean, when I saw that movie, by the way, as a kid, I mean, I was 18, but it just instantly hit me. I got, like, chills up my spine. It was so wonderful. I mean, I was a nerd way before it was cool. I mean, to give everybody an idea, Peter Parker was not a household name in the 90s at all. I mean, Clark Kent maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But not Peter Parker. And as a Spider-Man fan, it was just overwhelming to see that film come out. And I remember that scene where they were walking around the electron microscope as the class trip goes through for Peter's high school. And the scientist there says, here we have 15 genetically modified super spiders. And then MJ chimes in saying, 14. One of them's missing. And I always think, okay, one of them bit Peter. Even that one that bit him crawled away. But where are the other 15?
Yeah.
What an opportunity to, like, introduce Miles Morales, people. So I'm calling it. I think that Miles Morales will be in this movie. I'm hoping for, like, that end of movie cameo, though. And even Tom Holland's come out saying that he doesn't want to play Spider-Man past the age of 30 and that he thinks it's time for Miles Morales. I mean, do you think that Sony's maybe paying him to say that?
I mean, he can't keep his mouth shut about anything, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But
He's done well so far for this film, anyway.
That's true.
Surprising, a lot of restraint from Tom Holland for this one.
Yeah, it was emotional for him. He cried.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do, especially as long as we get Charlie Cox showing up as at least Matt Murdock.
Yes,
if not
please.
suiting up for Daredevil. So is there a particular one, Rob, that you're excited about the most, or something you've seen that you've really enjoyed lately? Or
I am looking forward to, I know we talked about Marvel a lot. I'm kind of a DC fan, so I'm looking forward to the Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson one. Looking forward to see how he takes on the role. Looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, I know we talked about independent stuff other than Marvel, DC, the big names. Looking forward to the 3rd season of Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
So I like that one. So those are about it. I mean, I wish they would bring back Punisher and Daredevil.
Yeah, it would be nice
I miss
to
those
see
shows.
Those guys, yeah. And the Netflix. I was talking to people on Twitter about, for some reason, Luke Cage was trending not too long ago. And everyone's of the opinion that they need to. I know Mike Coulter is currently doing Evil on CBS, but if they could get him for at least an 8-episode thing on Disney Plus or something to bring all those characters back, because those Netflix ones were absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Jessica Jones, I love Jessica Jones.
Yeah, I love the cinematography and the 2 shows.
And how each
Daredevil
one had its
Punisher.
own feel. Each one was a different, specifically different feel to each one, which they could have just gone, and made them all kind of in the same type of thing. I don't know. Joey, are you up on all is there anything like geek-wise that you specifically liked as far as TV shows or movies lately?
No, I'm a Philistine, and I kind of dread coming to this show every Sunday.
You always hang your head, and I can almost hear the sad Charlie Brown music play as you come in.
The ABC perspective that plays, I want to hear the hot breaking news.
I'm very sorry that we didn't have that on tonight as a result of the Mizzou game.
I know, basketball. That's what you need more of during this.
Yes, basketball and ABC perspective. You heard it right from Joey, folks. Thanks very much. We're signing off now. No, it's... But you gave Ghostbusters a favorable review, though, or did you didn't see Eternals yet?
I've not seen Eternals yet.
Okay.
I do love going to the theater, and I went 3 times this week.
Yeah.
So if I could go every day, I would. We saw, what did we see? Last Night in Soho, and then we saw Spencer, and then Ghostbusters, and I'm probably going to go see Dune in the theater just because the Hans Zimmer score, I want to hear it blasting into my eardrums instead of the tiny little speaker on my TV. So movies are really what I'm into. I can't say I keep up on a lot of TV shows unless they're comedies. Like What We Do in the Shadows is probably my favorite show right now. Yeah.
What did you see that was your favorite movie this year? I haven't gone to the theater as much as I should have, and I'm curious. I mean, you sound like it's still a major part of your life, and you're going a lot. What was your favorite film this year? And I say that because Spider-Man hasn't come out yet, and that's okay.
Oh, of course. You know what? I have to go through my whole letterbox to see which one grabbed me. It's always like a dark comedy that gets me, so I'd have to think hard real quick. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue, but stuff like Killer Joe was one of my favorite ones, where Matthew McConaughey and people get killed, and there's chicken, and
that's a good role of it.
So let me get back to you. I'm going to look it up right now.
I will say Last Night in Soho is easily going to be one of my top 5 favorite movies of the year. It was so good.
Is it that visually visceral?
It's very stunningly done, especially the mirror. Joey and I were talking about this before the show started, about the mirror work they do, where the 2 girls are paralleling each other, from the girl from the 60s and then the girl currently. And just the work that Edgar Wright did cinematography. The stuff he did with the cameras was cool.
Awesome.
Pictures,
That was an amazing recovery.
Sorry, I just had a mini stroke. Apologize. But it's very well done. I didn't quite expect the ending, because a lot of movies I'll see the ending kind of coming, and I didn't quite expect what happened. So yeah, that's one of my favorite movies of the year so far.
And it didn't do it with purpose to make sure that you didn't see the ending coming.
No.
It was the ending intentionally designed that way, too.
Yeah.
That's
it
awesome.
kind of leads you there, but it kind of takes the very most interesting route it can take.
Now look at the hand, but look what the foot's doing.
Right,
Missed it.
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as the Spider-Man movies, because we were talking, I was on Real Spoilers with their show reviewing Eternals. Eternals is probably bottom middle of the pack for Marvel movies for me, but I also am not a fan. I like Tom Holland as Peter Parker, but I don't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Spider-Man, because I feel like he's Iron Man Jr.
That's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the one thing I've had a complaint with. The Spider-Man movies haven't really quite hit for me, just because he's always in the shadow of Iron Man, and now it looks like he's going to be in the shadow of Doctor Strange.
Something that I really liked about the second Spider-Man movie for the MCU, he gets beat up by the villain. He has a kind of a moment of failing. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to do it. He designs a new suit and new gadgets to take down the villain, and then executes the plan and takes him out.
Which is classic Spider-Man 101, man. He loses first.
It's fantastic.
And then he comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had those hints of that, because I love the classic from right out of the comic book, where he's pushing up all the stuff that's collapsed on him in
Amazing
the first
Spider-Man
movie. Yeah.
33 for all the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that was a perfect comic book moment. And you're right, the fact that he got badly knocked down and had to get back up again, and that's Peter Parker. But I would like to see less reliance on the Iron Man enhanced suits.
Oh, sure.
That's one of the, because every iteration of Spider-Man, like, I didn't like the organic web shooters that Tobey Maguire had. I wanted him to build the web shooters, which is why I like the Andrew Garfield version better.
And again, that storyline was coming out of the 90s, where he had the organic, and
right.
I mean, it was being written in the 90s into the early 2000s, so that's kind of a carryover from that. I'm a big fan of the Iron Spider, and I also would like to see him kind of expand what he's doing.
Yeah.
Not just using an Iron Spider suit, but using other suits to do whatever he needs to get done.
I like playing with that suit in the video game.
Yeah, that's fair.
All the different skins in those games.
Yeah.
So Waldo's, man, all the extra arms. So
yes, I know.
And those Spider-Man costumes you're talking about, too. I mean, new Spider-Man comic books, and I'm talking circa last decade, he has gone through like 5 iterations of costumes. And some of his costumes have iterations of those own costumes to them. And And I think that part of Peter Parker's evolution as a character is that he is intelligently designing these specific costumes. But to parlay what you said earlier, he is not creating those costumes. Tony did.
Right.
And there's too much of that in the shadow feel. And Peter, of his own volition, is intelligent enough to do some of these things.
Yeah.
And there's that moment you see him tweaking everything on the plane with, gosh, I'm going to blank out. Yeah, with Happy. And when he's doing that, you can tell that there's this he is Tony moment because he's manipulating everything in the ether of the
through the hard light.
And it does kind of ruin the character a bit, but at least Peter's taking that ownership piece going forward and using that strategy part of his brain because he is intelligent. And one of his things is that he loses first, comes back with a win.
I just hope when we eventually get a Fantastic Four movie, we get a bombastic Bagman costume out of Peter Parker because that's one of my favorites.
There's just nothing better than bombastic Bagman. I was luckily enough to be afforded the opportunity to buy his first appearance in original art.
I've seen that in your
my
collection.
gosh.
That's amazing.
It was so fun to have something like that because it's such an obscure piece of knowledge. But for those of us who played video games back in like the early 2000s, like pre-Tobey Maguire and the PlayStation version of that game. Yeah, the original PlayStation Spider-Man game, you go around collecting comic books on rooftops. And if you collect enough of them, you get costume unlocks. And the Bagman one was so classic because it managed to keep the Kick Me sign on the back of the costume that Johnny Storm slaps on his back. Oh, it's just so classic.
I will say, black costume is still my favorite, but then the Scarlet Spider, we've had this discussion, Scarlet Spider costume is a close second.
So my personal favorite is the Future Foundation suit because it can transform into every other suit that he's ever had. Plus, it had other capabilities.
It's like wishing for more wishes.
Well, but it wasn't, Tony who was helping him. It was Mr. Fantastic for that one. And I think he's got another way of viewing the world, so it was kind of fun to see all of those different costume changes because he uses like 3 different ones in one comic book when that first came out. It was great.
Rob, what's your favorite Spider-Man costume?
Probably the black suit symbiote.
There we go.
Do you ever know how much that was? Do you know the original story behind the black costume?
The fan designed it?
Yeah, do you tell the story? I've heard it before, like hearsay from other people, but I like hearing other people's versions of the story because I feel like it's been told so many times that I don't know if I know the original anymore.
I don't know all the specific details, and especially after the war that I saw go on with Todd McFarlane and Dave Michelini and Eric Larson going back and forth on who should have gotten credit for the black costume because that was a whole big thing, dust up on Twitter and Facebook.
Not Todd McFarlane. That's my vote.
Right. Well, yeah, evidently, but he was evidently, they say without his design, it would have been, because anyway, that was a huge dust up. But it was someone wrote in the letter page and they said this would be the new design for Spider-Man costume. It didn't look much like the black costume, but they paid the kid, I think it was $100.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard too.
And then they went and turned that into the black costume that Ron Frenz famously drew on the cover of 252. And now it's this incredible thing. And this kid has this check for $500. But they said, well, he came up with the idea. Shouldn't he have gotten? And I think, and I could have gotten this part wrong, he actually tried to go back and sue Marvel.
I think I've heard things like that too, but like some of that stuff is so old and so
Right.
hearsay, like who knows? But just like knowing that like this super simplistic costume was created by a fan and then used. I mean, I love its use of negative space, especially when you see Spider-Man in the backdrop at night over the city.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's just a really
There's
sick
a lot
costume.
of good covers with, I feel like, that suit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the John Byrne one in Spectacular Spider-Man always
the
comes to
negative
mind.
space one,
It's gorgeous.
dropping into the city.
And this is
like that,
pre-Gleason. I mean, Gleason's now like the new negative space guy in
Right,
comic books in terms of what he can do. But like back in the day, Byrne knew what he was doing too. That's John
Some
Byrne.
of those covers, I love the one where he's, I think it's 287, where he's standing over Daredevil who's on the ground during the war, gang war storyline.
Fun fact, that sold on Heritage Auctions for more than $23,000 yesterday.
Was it graded?
Yeah, no, it's just an art page. The
Oh,
original
okay.
art. I'm talking about the original art,
Okay.
like hand drawn, inked, and everything. I was watching it on Heritage Auctions Live because I'm always curious what some of this art goes for. But I mean, an original art page of Amazing Spider-Man is probably always going to eclipse $10,000. But from that time period, you're probably going to eclipse 20. I don't know what its final close price was, to be honest, but I know that it was at that price yesterday.
And some of those comics too, because the black costume I think worked really well with the Kraven's Last Hunt.
Oh,
because it had been the red costume, I don't think it would have had that danger sense when he shows up in it. And I think it just
Coming out of the
what
grave.
they were doing with it.
Yeah,
was
that one where
brilliant.
he's on the grave.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have
cover.
looked as good.
No.
It's got that aura of death to it in a way, too.
Well, and then you got Mary Jane, who absolutely despised that costume.
Oh, why does she despise that costume?
Well, it was the whole thing with Venom. If you'd like to take over there, you're more than
No, I'm
welcome
asking
to,
you.
but-
I love hearing your knowledge, dude.
Well, when Venom showed up, he wanted to get back at Peter, and the best way to do that is to terrorize Mary Jane. And ever since that moment in comics, she despised the black costume. Like, anytime he put it on, she was pissed, which was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. It was Spider-Man 14, one of the last comics drawn by Todd McFarlane for Marvel. There's a scene where Peter is trying to talk her into letting him put the costume back on to hunt down Morbius in the sewers. And she gives it to him and just says no. And Peter's like, but I have to. So he has this moment of like my relationship versus my responsibility. What do I do? And of course, Peter chooses responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because of what happened during the Back in Black series after Aunt May got shot, when he revealed to the world that he was Spider-Man. He goes after Kingpin. And
in the prison, that's
he's wearing the black costume. It's one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man moments because he gets there and he's beating the crap out of Kingpin, and he goes to, I don't want to say the final blow, and Kingpin is kind of mouthing off to him, and he says, I know who you are, all the stuff. He takes off the mask and says, I'm not going to beat you as Spider-Man, I'm going to beat you as Peter Parker, and he just gives it to him. It's one of my all-time favorite stories from comics, but that was his breaking point, and it's really upsetting to see what happened directly after that. But
yeah, I'm not going to rabbit hole, but I like the Scarlet Spider costume the most.
Yeah.
That's a trap for me, by the way.
And we were just talking off there, too, about Christopher Cantwell. If you're listening right now, you can go to geektomeradio.com. We have all the backlogs of all the ones that I've done with interviews from different artists and writers, composers, directors, actors. We've got some great ones coming down the pike. So if you go to YouTube and subscribe there to Geek to Me Radio, you'll get the notification when my interview with Taylor Gray, who voiced Ezra Bridger in Rebels, drops and things like that. But you can also look over our back catalog and things like that. Check that out. We're going to take another quick commercial break. We're going to come right back after this with more. Stand by.
Action figures, Skeletor and the Warriors of Evil, and 4 fighting creatures. Castle Grayskull, Point Dread, and the Talonfighter. You put them together. And battle machines like the Attack Track, batteries not included.
What would you do with all the power in the universe?
He-Man, Skeletor, and all other items from the Masters of the Universe collection, each sold separately, from Mattel.
So the girl filled her cart in the Toys R Us store. And when that cart was filled with toys, she filled up 15 more.
Get Mattel's Feeling Fun Barbie with neat denim outfit at a great everyday low price. And Barbie's Ice Cream Shop from Mattel is the coolest place in town. The ice cream cart lets your child make real ice cream. Another great buy at Toys R Us.
Love growing up with my Toys R Us kid.
Toys R Us. You'll never outgrow it.
There's the Autobot defense base! But where are the Autobots? Who cares? Decepticons are gone! Oh no, look! It's Omega Supreme!
Introducing the Autobots Omega Supreme Defense Base. It comes with a motorized tank with flashing turret lights.
Decepticons! Counterattack Omega Supreme!
Transformers!
Omega Supreme will stop them!
Robots in disguise!
Omega Supreme is invincible!
Transformers!
The Transformers, sold separately, batteries not included.
The Sword of Omens, safe in the hands of Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats, fighting to keep it from Mumra, whose wicked eyes light up with a secret ring. Thundercats take to the Thunder Tank, transforming to resist the evil mutants. I'll crush your bones! Who will win, good or evil? Now you can decide. Thundercats by Rainbow Toys.
Spin the spinner and call the shot. Twister can tie you up in a knot. 1 foot here and 1 foot there. The spinner says what, but you decide where. You reach, you stretch, you balance and twist. You try it once, you get the gist. No 2 twists come out the same. Twister is a Milton Bradley game.
Twister from Milton Bradley.
Another Tycho Superblocks adventure. You've got to capture the enemy command post. Looks like a job for Tycho Superblocks. You have to strike hard, so you build the combat tank, Bulk half-track, the Mauler, and the rocket launcher. You send in your fast attack vehicle, then the attack chopper for support. You break through, you've won, and you've done it. Another...
Design it and build it, and check them out in person or at homesbywhitaker.com.
Hello. My name
is Sylvester McCoy. I want you to listen to Geek to Me Radio. Otherwise, if you don't, I'll cry.
Welcome back. Geek to Me Radio brought to you every Sunday on the Big 550 KTRS. This is an extended edition. We're usually on from 9 till 10. Mizzou basketball ran a little late, so we're doing a little bit of a longer show. The show would not be possible without the support of our premier sponsor, which is, of course, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. You might know them from the website discoverstcharles.com. That's discoverstcharles.com. They are gearing up for Christmas traditions. It's already going to be Thanksgiving this week, which is really hard to believe because it feels like it should only be about June or July. But nevertheless, Christmas tradition starts the day after Thanksgiving. So if you don't want to go out to the hustle and bustle of the malls and all that kind of stuff, come visit Main Street in St. Charles. There's all these small businesses, which right now, especially supporting small business is a huge thing we should all be doing. But all these little shops that you'll find things that you won't get at a mall. There's also the experience of the festival itself. They'll have international Santas. They'll have people dressed up in period garb singing period Christmas carols from Victorian all the way through to World War II type era Bing Crosby types. We've also got the Dickens Stroll. So on Wednesday nights, the entire Main Street turns into Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. You can see Ebenezer Scrooge, Tiny Tim, Jacob Marley, not to be confused with Bob Marley. That's a different festival. But they've got all these characters you can actually interact with. And it goes Wednesday nights and Friday nights. We have Krampusnacht. So if you want to go get your picture taken with Krampus and interact with the Kali Konstroi and all those type of people from German folklore. And then Saturdays and Sundays, they'll have the big Santa parade. They've got the chestnut roasters out there. It's just a great time. There are great places to eat, like Tompkins House for cocktails. You can get Salt and Smoke for the barbecue fanatic. And it's just a good time for everybody. There's something out there for everybody. And if you're listening to this right now and you're from out of town, you're not in the greater St. Louis, St. Charles area, come visit. There's plenty of hotels. There's bed and breakfasts. And maybe you want to get out and try someplace new now that everyone's been vaccinated and they're getting out and about after the pandemic. Maybe make St. Charles a place to go visit this Christmas season. Always a good time. You can start by planning your trip at the website discoverstcharles.com. That's discoverstcharles.com for an historically good time. We are talking with the crew from Cloud9 Comics, just kind of talking pop culture and everything else. We were talking about buying and selling comics, the comic book markets, how I'm very heartbroken now that I did not bid in this Heritage auction for the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 287, but I don't have that kind of money anyway, so I'm glad it went to a good home probably.
Yeah, $38,400. Sorry, wow. I way underestimated that. Like I said, yesterday was the last day I saw the bid, but it sold this morning.
Wow. I would not have had the money for that kind of stuff, but if people have it, that's great.
Yeah, we always wonder who has that kind of money to buy that
Someone
stuff.
Who has a really, really good home.
Leonardo DiCaprio probably bought it.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio is hanging them on his wall next to the Star Wars figures. That's got to be.
Yeah, I know that Eminem owns a few Venom covers.
Really?
So, yeah, he buys original art as well.
I've got a Cable cover.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. How'd you get that cover?
They've got, that's one of the things I collect is the posters from the stores that they would put up for the promos for whatever, and I'll take them to different conventions to get people to sign them. And we were talking about the Craven's Last Hunt. That's my favorite one because I've got all 6 people who worked on that book all signed on that poster. It's framed in a silver frame. So everyone has their thing that they collect, and that's a cheap way to get art on my wall. So I don't have to spend $10,000, anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 on a original piece of art. But that's, I know. Have you guys had someone come to you and say, I've got these for sale too? Have people sold you those things?
Absolutely. One of the first things I ever bought, original art-wise, is incredible. It's a Doug Monkey piece during Green Lantern in the heyday days of all the different colors of all the different lanterns. It's got this really great moment. For those of you who are science geeks like myself too, the cover has all of the entities all across it, and they are all the colors of the spectrum, and they create Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, green, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. I was overthinking that for a moment there.
It's Rob G. Biv, actually.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's Roy G. Biv. I didn't want to mess that up, but I did clearly. But it does this all across it, and then there's a White Lantern Sinestro, and he's got like an S in his chin for the extra subtle piece that is him. It's a fantastic piece of art, and I instantly fell in love with original art after that. So thank you, Doug Mankey, for that. Hopefully you're listening right now. But it was just incredible having that experience to buy art. and I quickly rabbit holed and wanted to find as much as I could. And then just typing in something as simple as Scarlet Spider original art and waiting for the right art to drop and buying it and selling it. You have to wait. Buying art, it's a patience game. I don't tell people to just invest in art. I say buy what you love.
Yeah.
Take something from your childhood that you remember reading and find that book. Like if I could find any art from Marvel's What If Volume 2, number 31. That was the first comic book I read cover to cover, and I still have it. If I could find art from that, I mean, like, it'd be a dream come true. But that's what I tell people to buy with original art. Investing in it, it's a nightmare. I mean,
and always ask creators whenever you are at conventions and stuff to see if they have any of those original pieces left, because if you ask the right people, you'll get something amazing.
I know Rick Burchett, who's local here, and he's been on the show a couple of times, multi-Eisner Award-winning artist, and he was up at Planet Comic-Con. He's got a book just full of stuff. Gorgeous art. He worked on the Justice League animated series comic, obviously Batman. He was the one who worked on the first appearance of Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So he's got this, because
Yeah,
Rick as well.
I've met him once and got a commission from him.
the commission's gorgeous that he did for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm a big fan. He ended up doing a Harley Quinn and Plastic Man piece for me.
Oh, that's right. I think you showed me that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he had Plastic Man drawn as a trampoline, and then he had Harley jumping up and down on him. So it was very nice. He was a very fantastic person, like awesome to meet, just down to earth.
Yeah.
But very fantastic artist.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorites.
Super humble, too, because he's
very much so.
As talented as he is,
Mhm.
you would expect a little bit of an ego, but no, he's
Yeah.
like the most humble, down-to-earth guy. And he did I'll show you guys, for those of you listening right now, if you look to your left as we go down 270, I'll show it to you out the window. He did a recreation of Detective 73, which is Scarecrow leaning over, grabbing the stuff out of the vault, has Batman and Robin leap up at him in the Batman animated series style. And I expected he would draw it for me, but he drew it, he inked it, he shaded it, and did this gorgeous recreation cover. And he's currently working on one now for a recreation of Batman 308, where Mr. Freeze has taken him over and he's rising up out of the cryo chamber. So
it's gorgeous.
Absolutely amazing. So yeah, like to speak to your point, if you are at these shows, go to the artists. They usually have a large book and you can flip through and buy the original art, because that's a great way to get it, because they're selling it right there at the convention. You can take it home with you, but then you can actually look through it and see how it looks in person rather than buying it online, which always is a little weird for me.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, I think the commission part of it is really cool, like because of you're getting something that is a one of one when it comes down to it, like so it's a neat part of collecting the art from those certain artists like that.
It's the most affordable way to go about it most of the time, too.
Yeah.
They do charge an arm and a leg for published work. I mean, I bought one of Rick's pieces at Winter One Day, like 4 years ago here in St. Louis, and he had a Dan Slott written She-Hulk page. And I was like, I have to have this. This is cool. I love Dan Slott work, and, I loved your work, too, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for me to own it. And he said, what are you going to do with it? And I said, I'm going to hold on to it, put it on the wall for maybe 6 months, and then I'm going to sell it. I usually want to find the right person for it, and if I fall in love with it, I end up delisting it and keeping it in my personal collection. I only have 5 or 6 pieces that I've done that
You
way.
do have a Ben Reilly shrine.
Yeah, I have a Ben Reilly shrine. Yeah, I have Scarlet Spider number 4. It's got that Bagley art on it, and it's that classic Spider-Man jumping with the legs just perfectly posed with the webs behind him and webs coming in front of him.
It's used for everything Scarlet Spider.
Everything.
Scarlet Spider, it's that image, and he's got the original art, and it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, but every time you type in Cable and Deadpool, you get your original art page, which I found. We get lucky with some of these pieces, but if you can find something that you're passionate about, that's the thing. And a really cool, passionate story that I have for comic book art. There's a Hunt for Wolverine number 1, and Wolverine at one point got encased in a whole thing of adamantium, and he's stuck inside of it. And there's a moment where he finally reemerges, but they don't know how it happened. Hence the Hunt for Wolverine, because he's reemerged.
Is it like a Han Solo moment?
Yeah, kind of like a Han Solo
where he
moment.
gets okay.
Yeah, and he's stuck in this thing, and then he gets out of it. And on the front cover, they do this image to suggest it, where it's his face covered in adamantium, but in stripes, and you see Wolverine on the inside of it. If you're paying really close attention, you'll notice that he's coming out of his own head. But people miss the part that it's his head. It's just an image of like a cocoon of adamantium. And I fell in love with that piece because I bought it for a friend of mine. And I was like, if you ever saw that piece, you got to sell it back to me. He sold it back to me, and now I have it. It has a great story behind it, too, of me falling in love with another piece of art that I bought for a friend. And like that's the kind of thing you got to be passionate about when you buy something like an original art piece.
And you mentioned the names Mark Begley and obviously Rob Liefeld, who drew. And I feel like, again, this is not me knocking anybody, but I feel like Mark Begley's art has stayed the same, actually improved in some areas. I feel like Rob Liefeld, some of the variant covers he's done lately, isn't
his feet
as Rob Liefeld-y as he used to be in the 90s.
His feet are
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
I would like to be clear here. I do not own a Rob Liefeld original art piece for cable.
Yeah, yours is Oliver Coppoletti, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has noticed the same, or it's just me to kind of be nitpicky, but I feel it's not as Rob Liefeld-y as it used to be.
No, it's not. He doesn't do backgrounds at all anymore either.
He's too big.
Yeah.
Nah.
He's also a really nice guy.
Yeah, I hate badmouthing somebody that's just an honest,
and
good person too. By the way,
I'm trying to badmouth the guy. It feels like his art has drastically changed.
It has.
Yeah.
It's still very Liefeld-y.
Yeah,
But
it's very in action sequence. I think one of the things that he does really good, because I'm going to spend some time complimenting him now that we've done this, but he captures action sequences, the fight in the moment really well, like the punch going across the face, you know, the strained, stressful muscles on a character as they're being hit or thrown off a building and whatnot. That serious anger you can see through Deadpool's face in the mask.
Yeah, with
like,
the mask on.
Yeah, you're like, what does Deadpool look like underneath the mask? You know, Rob Liefeld captures that extremely well. It's almost like he's drawing ugly Deadpool with the mask still on, and you're seeing that through the mask. So he does a great job with that. And honestly, the dude knows how to draw pouches. Can we talk about his ability to draw pouches?
Yes.
I mean, that's one of my all-time favorite comic covers is New Mutants 93, where Wolverine's coming down on Cable.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite covers of all time. So, again, I'm not knocking the guy. I'm just saying it seems like his art has changed more than someone like Mark Bagley, who's been much more consistent in his style.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the reasons why guys like Bagley exist in the industry is because of his ability to pump out art. He did Trinity for just so you guys know, I think he did Trinity for maybe 2 years and pumped out 50-something issues. He is nuts, man. He is just a machine when he draws stuff. And you see him at cons, too. He's a super kind dude, and he is just always drawing, always drawing, always drawing. And he won a Marvel tryout, which is one of the reasons why he's so successful to begin with. And, they said, hey, can you do this again? He said, absolutely. And his speed has definitely afforded him that ability. But his consistency, like you said, he's not going to be like named right next to Todd McFarlane. He's not going to be signing comic books for $100. But a humble dude like him is so much more fun to talk to anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, he's probably the coolest person that I've met in the industry. I don't want to badmouth anybody who I've met, but he was definitely the best.
Yeah, it's always nice when you meet somebody and they're nice and they're kind, because I know some people have said, and again, I'm not going to name names or anything, but some people have met certain artists and writers and they've been kind of not the most friendly.
Yeah. I think there's that worry of don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed. I mean, I think all of us have been pretty lucky. We've met a lot of our comic book heroes, and it's been really good.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any really terrible stories. I got some awkward ones, but like it's not always bad. But at the same time, like when I met Mark Bagley, this was cool. I had my 4-year-old daughter with me, and he ever so politely said, "Hey, can I touch your daughter?" And it wasn't a creepy thing. It was him asking because he was going to draw something on her hand. And here's a guy who charges, and literally draws for a living, and he just drew a spider on my daughter's hand. And she thought it was the coolest thing because I had told her about how awesome his art is and how much art that I own of his and how special the Clone Saga is in my heart. And she didn't wash her hand for like 5 days. I mean, I made her use hand sanitizer, but like at the same time, she didn't want to like get the spider gone that he drew. And like that little act of kindness like will stick out in her mind long after he's dead. She will always remember a moment like that. That's what this industry is really about, is creating those moments for people.
And see, Danny Fingeroth, if you're listening, there's another Clone Saga fan just like myself who really enjoyed the series.
That's 3.
That's 3. Yeah. I think that's one of those things, though, in the 90s, they overproduced comic books. I mean, to keep up with Spider-Man back then, you
just
had
a little bit.
Yeah, you had about 6, 7 to 8 books a month. It's insane. Luckily nowadays we have, Omnibuy. We can buy omnibus formats, and rereading the Clone Saga. I mean, if you read it from cover to cover, it makes sense. But if you don't, it doesn't make any sense.
I feel like the real issue there was 8 issues that were coming out per month, and then it was also like that for a whole year.
Oh, yeah. Almost 2 years.
Yeah, there was a lot of books at the time. So we'll just, on that same note, we'll pop around the room real quick. We'll start with Rob. Who has been the person you've met, be it an artist or a writer in the comic book industry, who you've been the most impressed by?
I honestly have not met too many. I met like a few local people. I'd say Rick Burchett is probably
Rick Burchett.
Yeah, probably my favorite. Just with talking to him while he was drawing, and stuff like that, he was, I don't know, definitely my favorite. Yeah, it's like I haven't met too many of them, I guess.
Rick will hold an entire conversation
Yeah,
as he's drawing. He'll even look up to you, and
Yes,
it's
he
just
won't stop.
amazing. He won't stop drawing as he's having this conversation. I'm lucky if I can chew gum and talk to you guys right now.
When I asked him to, I first asked him to draw Plastic Man, and he was like, kind of taken aback, and he was like, I've never actually had that request in actually a long, long time. You know, he's like, I haven't drawn him too much, and he was happy to do it though. And then when I asked him to do Harley with it, he was like, let me think of something, you know, and it was definitely turned out fantastic.
Was the trampoline idea his then, or was it yours?
No, it was his. So he ended up like, he was like, the thing he told me was, he was like, you know, the hardest thing for an artist to come up with, especially comic book artists, is to come up with a new scene each time, you know, when they do a commission. And so he's like, so let me think about something. And I came back to him maybe like 10 minutes later, and he's like, I actually thought of something. If you like it, I'll do it. And then he told me the idea, and I said, say no more. I was like, go ahead. I was like, you're the man. Go right ahead. So.
And Paul, same question.
Stanley. I know that sounds like, you know, like the so cliche thing, but I remember when we were doing the convention scene back in the day, everybody had to pay like $50, and you got to ask Stanley one question. And like it was the beginning of my dealer days, and I brought 50 books to have Stanley sign and get certified. And he was just sitting there signing stuff, and he's like, you really like these comic books, don't you? I got to have this like genuine, authentic 20-minute conversation with Stanley, and it really stuck out because Stanley did not once talk about himself. I want to say that again. He didn't once talk about himself. He asked me questions, and he made me feel important. And I think that is why people gravitate towards Stanley, is that because of that humbleness of, you already know who I am. I want to hear about you. And I think that when he brings that to the table every single time with every single customer that he ever met during his signing days, when he could talk to them, it really afforded an opportunity for people to like say, I'm going to remember that forever. And that legacy that he leaves behind, I think that's what Stanley's real legacy should be, is his connection to fans. I mean, people argue about who created what and who did what, when, where, why, and they have lots of arguments. And I think that people just need to remember that Stanley was a master at convincing people to get books and to love them. And he coined great phrases like true believer. I mean, that's a connection to the reader right there that everybody needs to acknowledge is important. So I'll say that was probably my most memorable experience with a creator.
And Grant?
So I also got to meet Stan Lee. It was
jealous.
It was very cool to see, or very cool to see him. It was pretty late in his life when I did get to meet him. I didn't get to have any fun conversations with him, but it was still really nice to meet him. I'm going to have to take it back to Rob Liefeld. He was incredibly nice. He had his son with him, and his son was helping him with the booth. He was smiling with all the fans. He held a conversation with me, you know, took pictures, signed books, just had a great time. So I definitely have to say Rob Liefeld.
And it's so fun that they have these conventions. It's one of the things I missed during the pandemic was going to conventions, because I usually try to do about between 4 and 6 every year. And I just felt like, this whole year is like nothing going on. But so it's great that we can get to these conventions. So I highly recommend, if you do get the chance in 2022, go to some of these conventions, because we keep seeing, like, every time I turn on the headlines, I feel like this person's now passed away. We just lost Frank Romano, who did all the Barry Gordon Halloween costumes, did all the art for that stuff. He just passed away today. He's 91 years old, I think. So he had a good run, but still, it's 97 years old. But it's so important. Like, I'm so glad I got to meet Stan Lee as many times as I did. And those artists and writers who contributed so much to our youth and growing up and everything like that. So I always recommend, if you get the chance to get out and go to one of these conventions, go see these people and thank them for what they've done for you and for your childhood. And they love hearing it every time. So highly recommend. In addition to buying art while you're there too, because that's a great way to help them out. Because I know a lot of these people have talked about the Hero Initiative and things like that, because they don't have a retirement plan. A lot of these people, especially these people who created characters for Marvel and DC, they don't get royalties on those characters they created. They belong to the comic company that owns the company.
It's a little crazy to think about.
Yeah, so
like,
that's when they do these shows. That's how they make their income. Obviously, buying original art from them helps them out. So you can always do that at the convention from these people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we have so many great independent comic books, by the way. I mean, like, people talk about Something's Killing the Children right now. Yeah. You know, like, that's just blowing up. I think that, you know, these comic book companies, because they don't give any ownership to the people that create them, they stifle the creativity so much it forces them out another way. Because there are guys like James Tinian who just they're just gushing with creativity, and it's an overflow. And the cup they're using to catch that overflow now becomes their independent creations.
Yeah.
And then they move on, and then Marvel and DC lose these incredibly prolific creators because of that relationship. I remember that story that they were telling about, gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but there were some comic book creators who created the Winter Soldier, and they got $500 and a ticket to see the movie as a thank you. It's what Brubaker got for creating, for creating the Winter Soldier. And you think about, his influence in the movie scheme of things. I mean, I think the Winter Soldier is probably like the strongest of the Marvel movies at that time period. We finally got a spy flick.
Yeah.
And that was just so awesome. But like at the same time, like here's what they're going to give the creators. It does feel like a little slap in the face, but like Marvel and DC have been doing it this way for a very long time, and asking a corporation to change, it's not exactly an easy thing.
We're also talking about the Empire of Mouse right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do feel these, some of these smaller independent, like you said, comic books and stuff that are turning into shows and movies and all of that are stepping up, They're kind of knocking on the door, being like, look, we're here too, I mean, Walking Dead.
Yeah, Lock and Key on Netflix, all those kind of things like that.
Umbrella Academy, you go on and on, like we talked about, So I mean, yeah.
I'm happy about all that extra generation of things that have come out. I mean, like, you think about where just somebody as simple as Kirkman came from, and like the fact that Walking Dead's so popular, but people forgot that dude created Marvel Zombies first.
Yeah.
Like he got all of his ideas probably generated from all of the positive influence that came his way. Everybody said, oh, Marvel Zombies is like the greatest thing I've ever read. And it started an Ultimate Fantastic Four comic book.
I was actually going to mention this as well when I was talking about how great it is to be a geek. Since What If was so popular, Zombicide is coming out with a Marvel Zombies edition, which is going to be spectacular. I saw a 1.5-foot model of Galactus that they were showing on their Twitter feed. It's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and like you said, this is the best time. It's like a golden age with all the movies and shows and everything. And so talking about the comic books too, because I feel like in this industry, the comics birthed all these projects, but I feel like now the comics are kind of modeling themselves more after the movies and TV shows and how they're, especially I feel like Marvel more so, because the current Marvel comics that are out are kind of, I feel like they're
taken from the movies.
Yeah, more, they're kind of mirroring more of that rather than reflecting back the other way.
So you do get issues with like Civil War II was not a popular comic book series for fans, and it was just there to promote the hype for the movie. But you also have things like, and I know I just kind of bashed Disney a little bit there, but you get things like Mandalorian's coming out that is pulling information straight out of those old comic books and, books and stuff that we're seeing. And that's mostly Filoni and all those guys, but still. And we're seeing a lot of comic influence still in the media coming out on screen.
I like the idea that life imitates art, imitates life, imitates art, and it should be a cyclical cycle like that, especially when you have something that's so cross-media. I mean, you got TV shows, video games, books, movies, toys. It's a plethora of product that's being put out right now. And I think that, when you have that imitates it and goes back to it, as long as that cycle always keeps true to the original character, it's wonderful.
I do feel that they're trying to like reach for certain characters that maybe aren't as popular or haven't been as popular. And so I feel like that maybe drives some of that, talking about the market value of comic books and stuff like that.
For Iron Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was not anyone's favorite until 2008.
And that would actually be a great example of writing taking the character in a new direction because of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Iron Man books became immensely popular and more well-written when he took over the character.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm very excited to see Monica Rambeau, who is my Captain Marvel. Every time I think of Captain Marvel, I always picture her in that white and black outfit.
With the bronze edged cover, her flying over New York. Yeah, it's
That's
a great
good
cover. It is. Yeah.
And it's a lot of those, like you said, that's still an affordable get. Amazing Spider-Man Annual, was it 22?
14.
14.
22 is
Speedball.
Speedball, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, that's still an affordable get if someone was wanting to go out. And we mentioned off the air, too, before we get out of all this, because we're coming towards the end of the show here, we should give people your phone number, too, if people want to reach out.
Absolutely. I have to admit, like, we're on the world's largest marketplace on eBay, so selling stuff to local product or local people, it's not necessarily something that we need, but if you have a curiosity, about what your comic book's worth. But if you have a curiosity about what you want to do selling it, you just want advice. If you want to sell a huge collection, we've bought collections 25,000 to 50,000 like comic books, actual comics at a time. It's not a problem for us. But if you have any questions, 314-691-2864, Cloud9 Comics and More. Again, that's 314-691-2864. We'd be happy to help. And if you have any other questions and you don't want to like take down a phone number because you're on the road right now, cloud9comicsandmore.com. You can find out all of our referral sources there, and we'd be happy to help.
And is Cloud the numeral 9, not 9 spelled out, right?
Absolutely. So CLOUD 9 COMICSANDMORE.com.
And you can always catch us on Facebook.
Absolutely.
And we did mention the and more, so board games, video games, sealed or new, loose toys,
magazines, trade paperbacks,
Magic cards, Pokemon cards, gold.
I was gonna say.
Gosh,
Vintage
we've
cards.
bought guns
Or,
before
sorry,
too.
vintage cars?
Yeah. Cars, yeah, cars, yeah. I mean, like anything that we can do to help people out. We do so much research on so much product. And I think that because we've done that, it's just helped us buy anything that we can find. I mean, like World War II stuff too. I mean, anything we can do to help people out and like just
It all comes down to collectability.
Got to have some value.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to have some value. But like, even if you don't know, reach out. I mean, we've had people who have said, hey, I have this Death of Superman comic book. Is it worth anything? And my knee-jerk reaction's no. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that one time that, I said, why don't you send me some photos and text it to me and I'll look at what you got. And sure enough, there was the platinum edition of Adventures of Superman 500, which is the first Steel and Superboy. That book is $1,000 comic book if you get a CGC 9.8 out of it. So you're talking about a best in class.
CGC.
But any day of the week, and Nearman copies were $200. So, like, always reach out, always ask questions. It doesn't hurt to have some knowledge.
And obviously, people already have their stuff CGC graded. That's not a problem for you guys either. You guys have.
We'll buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the right book, I mean, we'll pay 80% of retail value for it, which is what you're going to clear in the end anyways, because eBay, from the average consumer, they're going to take 10 to 20%. That's not what we get. We have a cap that we have because we're dealers.
Mhm.
So for us, it's a little bit more lucrative, but at the same time, that means we can maximize the amount of money we can spend on someone's collection.
Yeah. And so what's been, let's say in the past 6 months, what's been like a book that made you stand up and take notice that you might have found in a collection, like be it a Batman #1 or anything super like eye-popping that you've gotten recently in the past 6 months or so?
I'd say all the Shang-Chi first appearances that we've managed to pick up. I'll tell you what the most eye-opening book is. It's just one of those, like, you have to do a double check every time you see it. Vengeance #1, a very unknown miniseries from the mid-2000s, and it's the first appearance of America Chavez. And it is just huge. It's blowing up right now. Marvel, the company that's doing all these movies and TV shows, they're really going this Generation 2 aspect. You're seeing Kate Bishop as the new Hawkeye. We're going to see more Miss Marvel stuff with Monica Rambeau.
Probably some Riri Williams.
As the new Iron Man, possibly, or Iron Woman. Hopefully they actually don't do...
Ironheart, I don't know if they go that route.
I thought that's a way better name to begin with anyways, because of the passion that she brings to like her robotics nature. And I think that with that Generation 2 thing, that America Chavez fits into that as kind of like the Captain America Jr. kind of character.
It's a lot of those early 2000s characters that are popping off right now. So Sentry #1, the Adam Bashir Blue Marvel first appearance.
That's a crazy valuable book too, man. Super low print when we're talking about a book that has less than 10,000 printings.
Huh.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just gaining huge amounts of value right now, and a lot of it's thanks to the MCU.
Yeah.
Because hopefully we'll get to see these characters in the future.
Yeah, and so if you're listening right now, like I said, you might have something in your collection. Well, all my stuff is post 2000, so I probably don't have anything valuable in there. You might be surprised, so you might want to, again, give the guys at Cloud9 Comics a call, and they can sort that all out for you.
Absolutely, and appraisals are free for us. I mean, we want to look at what you got. We want to give you advice. We might say, hey, send some photos first so we can get an idea of what it is that we're looking at. But if somebody says, hey, we have 1,000 comic books that we want to sell, I mean, that's an instant we go to look at that collection, regardless of what their intention is. We want to help that person out.
And with all the stuff there is, with all the products out there that people are selling, especially, has it slowed down at all? Because I know with the prices going up on the rise, I would expect some people are probably holding on and thinking, okay, well, this is only going to go up from here, so they're hanging on to stuff. Or again, has it been steady?
Amazing Spider-Man. I see it in a constant holding pattern. Imagine a plane just circling an airport waiting to land, and that landing moment is when someone puts a double the value of its last sale up on eBay. If you talk about Steve Ditko Spider-Man days, I mean, that's the grails of grails, that whole era up to issue 33 for Amazing Spider-Man. But anything even up to like the early Bronze Age for Spidey is just it's filthy valuable because people hold. I mean, I'm one of those guys. I hold.
And since to the Fox deal, X-Men 1 through 20.
Oh,
Same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got to talk. You need to talk about how valuable X-Men comic books have blown up, Grant. I mean, you see it.
I mean, issue 1 is almost unobtainable at this point.
Wow.
I mean, I even have what I would consider a 0.5 issue 2 that has become 15 times more than it was worth when I had picked it up. It is getting scary how scarce those books are, and again, I think it's the people are holding on it, waiting for the MCU to actually do something with those characters.
It's funny because I remember even, I want to say last year, like some of those earlier ones where Werner Roth was doing the art on them, they just weren't very valuable. People weren't. Yeah, you could probably get like an issue 20 for $10.
Absolutely. Anything post like Stan Lee's writing on X-Men, you could get a steal on. That's not true anymore.
Wow.
I mean, it's just not true. Like I think the best example that we have as a company story is Grant just had a fantastic year helping my company grow, and I wanted to like go out of my way to do a nice favor for his birthday, and I got him a giant size X-Men #1. What grade is it, by the way? I don't remember.
2.5.
It's a 2.5. I paid $400 for it. Grant, what's that book worth now?
I think the last time I checked, it was 2,500, and that was like 3 months ago. I'm guessing it's
for a 2.5.
And the problem with me saying what it's worth right now is they don't exist. So every time they pop up on a place to buy them, people buy them. So that price is just skyrocket.
Yeah, I would say that as a person who knows how many comic books are available, there's less copies of the early Spider-Man books available than there are the early X-Men books. X-Men came out in like 63 and 64. So like you have so many more printings. Same with Daredevil, you have so many more printings of these Silver Age Big Ten, the Marvel type books. And I think that if you're going to invest, like X-Men's the way to go right now. I mean, I don't know how often people can make an investment and say, I added a 0 to mine.
Yeah.
I mean, X-Men is the way to go, in my opinion. It's just always going to climb.
And that's actually why Daredevil is, at the moment, and quickly becoming not, but is affordable as a book for a first appearance. It's because it came out in 1965.
64.
64?
Mm-hmm. Very high.
It was one of the last first appearances of what we would consider the Marvel Big Ten.
Yeah, and Marvel Big Ten, just to give that off a shout all the way down, we got Fantastic Four, #1, really building the whole universe and setting everything up. And then after that, you immediately have follow-up with the Incredible Hulk, capturing that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type character, following up that with that Jack Kirby cover of Amazing Fantasy 15 and the fantastic Ditko pencils on the inside. And then immediately after that, you're just seeing Journey to Mystery, Tales of Suspense, creating Thor and then Iron Man, respectively. After that, you got the X-Men books, and then you have Tales of Suspense. Tales
to Astonish?
Strange Tales. Strange Tales, Doctor Strange. I have to go with that one first.
He's not a big Ant-Man fan.
I'm not a
first
big
appearances.
Ant-Man fan. No, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Hank built the universe, but like, I think it's hard to get behind a character that is known for hitting women in comic books, and I'm glad that Disney kind of steered clear of making him the main character. But Strange Tales being Doctor Strange's first appearance, and then X-Men 1 and Daredevil 1, and then Avengers. It's hard to put that in the Big Ten, but I have to because of its value.
Yeah,
it's not the first appearance of anybody.
No,
it's not.
I'd rather have Avengers 4 than Avengers 1. And we're also not including, Marvel or Atlas Comics stuff from the 1940s.
Right.
Yeah. Our focus is on, like, what do you know, or what did I collect as a kid? Like, I remember Marvel cards as a kid.
Yeah.
And looking at the back of the cards from Series 1. In fact, I have this as a memorable moment, but if you look at the back of a 1990 Series 1 Amazing Fantasy 15 card, it says the value in near mint is worth $2,500. Just to give you guys a perspective on that, a near mint copy, 9.6 highest graded, just sold for $3.6 million, making it the world's most expensive comic book ever sold.
So if they were build a time machine, that's what I would go back and do, is go by and scoop up all the comic books.
My joke is always that I would pay off the guy who's running the print machine for Action Comics #1. That way I'm not taking away from anyone's childhood or the value of that book, but I just show up with 100 copies. That'd be great.
I don't care. It's my
care.
book. It's like, I don't care if I'm taking that kid's book. It's mine.
Well, as long as we're working with
more cutthroat, obviously. That's
why I'm over here.
We kept you in the corner for a reason. We're a little worried.
I mean, I'm talking about bribing with quarters as it is the 40s.
Yes, right. So
yeah, but focus on those books. The villains, like Grant was mentioning. So, like, go after Doctor Doom, Galactus. Try to find
Silver Surfer.
Yeah, try to find the antithesis character too. Like Mephisto is the Silver Surfer antithesis to me. You know, like, yeah, Galactus created it, but it's not his antithesis. You know, Spider-Man is to Venom.
Yeah.
You know, Reed Richards is to Doctor Doom. Abomination is to Hulk. Focus on those types of characters, and I think you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's still a lot of, talking about the Bronze Age again, Scott Lang Ant-Man in Marvel Premiere is still a fairly inexpensive comic book, roughly speaking.
Absolutely. In issue 183 of Avengers,
Yeah.
his first appearance of mention of Scott Lang is still an incredible comic book. I mean, we're $200 for a near mint comic book all over again for a very, very heavily printed book.
And there's also
and everybody has that in their collection who collected Avengers.
Yeah, and right after that, they're going to have first Taskmaster too, which is significantly holding its value. I mean, even though they went in a totally different direction with the Marvel movies, I think they still nailed the essence of the character really well.
Yeah, just that repetitive, I can do whatever you do, just better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Vengeance of Bane is another one I saw sneak up in value recently.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised by that because he's not, as far as I know, due to make any appearances at all.
No, I don't. I think that maybe it's just the strength of Tom Hardy playing another villain in some way, or I should say anti-hero. Venom, to me, like I grew up in the 90s, and I remember Venom being a villain.
The lethal protector.
Yeah. And I think that he's capturing that character really well, and maybe that's affecting the value of, Vengeance of Bane. But honestly, Bane is like one of the best darn villains that Batman's ever produced.
I think it's one of the best written characters that has been in Batman books.
Yeah, his intelligence level, bringing that to the table and fighting Batman on his own level of intelligence playground. I mean, like, Batman doesn't stand a chance if they're equally intelligent because Bane's stronger.
Yeah.
It took bad guys 40 years to figure out that he was Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I know.
Did we
He
forget
did it in
about
a week.
the Joker?
I mean, it depends on the writer.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that the Joker is always going to be the antithetical character.
Yeah.
We're so rooted in Marvel. I mean, Grant and I have an extreme bias towards Marvel. It's awesome for us. And, Rob, he loves the Joker. I mean, let's talk about your DC. What's the DC focuses that people should be focusing on right now? What's the things that you're into?
I mean, with that Batman movie coming out, few of the characters that are in there.
And don't forget, all of those characters have Silver Age first appearances and Bronze Age
That's right,
first
yeah.
appearances that also go up in value whenever those characters get
Yes,
mentioned.
when they
They're
get-
so hard to find the Golden Age versions of those characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that first Riddler is another one that's unattainable for me anyway. Detective 141?
Yeah, I have a Silver Age first appearance of Two-Face. So
Batman 234?
Yeah, I think I'm not.
Yeah, 234,
off the
232
top
was
of my
Ra's
head.
al Ghul.
Yeah, it's like there's like a boat with two faces.
It's either
cover on the
234 or
face.
230.
Yeah, that's a good cover.
I was actually holding a first appearance of Mr. Freeze in the Silver Age on Thursday.
Really?
Love it.
Oh yeah. It's on my
Again,
desk.
if you want to check out what they're doing and sell your stuff, the people at Cloud9 Comics, Cloud9, the numeral 9 comics.com for more.
And more, actually.
And more, that's right, and the more. We are wrapping things up in the show. My thanks again to Grant, Paul, and Rob for coming into the studio and chatting. Thanks to you for listening to this extended edition of Geek to Me Radio, and we'll do it again next week.
It's not in the way you watch iZombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young Art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Earth 616. Good night.
The Big 550.
KTRS in Waukesha, Wisconsin, a Milwaukee